Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I have recently done a few videos about the absolute car crash that is the SNP's running of Scotland. What I'm doing today in this video is something that is so appalling. I don't know how to describe how appalling it is. Words fail me. Words will fail you too. What this video is about is so shocking, so bad, so liable to lead to untold court cases. It is abuse on such an extreme scale as to be completely unbelievable. What the NHS in Scotland are proposing is to extend the SNP's push for trans rights to such a degree as it makes any right-minded person's head whirl with complete confusion as to why they're doing it. The damage they're going to do to children is beyond measure. I could not believe when I read this. So watch this video. Tell me in the comments exactly what you think is going on in Scotland, what you think is going on in the minds of the SNP, is going on in the minds of the people running the Scottish NHS. Tell me if this is right. Tell me if you agree with it. I just cannot fathom how this is allowed. Who would possibly come up with this? And how anyone who did come up with this is doing so from a position of power. It's horrific. We're going to go into this video now. Right, before we get into it, I'd just like to say that only about 20% of my viewers are subscribed. And I'd like to think that this story is worthy of a subscription. So if you haven't subscribed, please do consider hitting the button. It helps to get the word out there. And when you see this video, you'll understand why this particular word needs to be out there. So, yeah, it really does help the channel. So do please consider hitting that subscribe button right now if you can. That'd be great. Anyway, into the story. And trust me, you need to step back and see the big picture on this one. It is awful. NHS Scotland plans to remove barriers, as they call it, to irreversible operations for transgender patients and make a single opinion enough to refer for surgery in most cases. The new trans treatment rules will see operations made far more widely available, and one of the proposed measures is to allow GPs to send patients for procedures. It says a patient's background or mental health need not be examined in detail. Think about this. That third line alone, the patient's background or mental health need not be examined in detail, is an invitation to bankrupt the NHS after thousands and thousands of court cases because there is no safeguarding. A GP is not an expert. A GP may never have come across this before in his life, and yet he will be expected to make a profound, permanent, life-changing decision based on his limited knowledge. It is a joke. Nobody is caring for the GPs. The poor GP that will make this decision is going to get sued when it turns out that the trans patient isn't a trans patient, because without those mental health checks that they say are barriers, it could be that the patient is depressed or schizophrenic or Aspergic, or insert any other kind of mental condition that may cause some kind of change of personality like that. They may not be trans, and yet a single GP could make a decision saying, no, that's fine, there you go. Boom, go on, have these operations, get sterilised, absolutely realise later that it was such a big mistake, and then sue the NHS in Scotland. But what is really worrying is that this comes from the SNP. This comes from Hamza Youssef. He's the health minister in Scotland. So this has undoubtedly come off his desk. Why are the SNP so determined to make becoming a woman for a man so instantaneous without any kind of consideration as to the outcome of anything. There's no health check. There's no psychological check. You're basically getting a GP to sign off on it. A single view. Nothing. No consultant, no specialist. And it gets far worse when you get into this. So, the new transgender treatment rules, which the Telegraph says it has seen, will reportedly see operations made far more widely available, including mastectomies, breast implants and genital reassignment, as well as hormonal treatments. Now remember, all this costs, and these are elective procedures, but they're going to be done on the NHS in Scotland. The report calls for barriers to gender reassignment surgery, which can benefit trans patients, to be removed, according to the Telegraph. And as I said, these barriers are things like consultants, psychologists, someone who puts a flag up and says, actually, this patient isn't trans. That's a barrier. That's not a safeguard any longer. That's a barrier. The language is being used here to push this agenda that seems so important to Nicola Sturgeon and her government. And what are the benefits? It said the benefit to trans patients, but it doesn't mean that the patient is a trans. And if someone who's not trans suddenly has their ghoulies cut off, please explain where the benefit is. Anyway, one of the proposed measures is reportedly to allow GPs to send patients for procedures instead of specialists. Well, that goes completely against the Hippocratic Oath there and then. And it is, like I say, that is the single bit that will enable thousands of people to sue. And it will make a single opinion enough to refer for surgery in most cases. Yes, because heaven forfend you might get a second opinion, or someone who says, actually, this is not the right move. The NHS Scotland report also said that a patient's background or mental health need not be examined in detail before a referral is made. Are you kidding me? You could have someone who's a paranoid schizophrenic, for example, who could be treated with simple chemicals, a pill, basically, that can be treated with medication. It can be controlled with medication. They stop taking their medication. They go along, insist that they're now a girl. They have the operation. They go back on their medication and went, what the hell have I done? And then sue because nobody has safeguarded them. This is madness. And it gets, you think this is bad. Take a step further back because the picture's getting a whole lot bigger. The report allegedly states people must not be expected to describe their childhood, their sexuality, or their current gender identity and gender expression in stereotypical ways in order to access gender-affirming healthcare. So you don't even have to tell the doctor, well, I feel like a woman, I want to be a woman, and, all through my childhood, etc., I always felt I was a girl. None of that. No. Now, all you got to do is go to the doctors and say, yeah, I want to be a woman now. Certainly, sign off. Are you kidding me? Where is the protection for those who are vulnerable? And it's about to get worse. Honestly, this is a ladder into hell. Access to hormones and surgeries can act as a prophylactic measure against distress, they say. And a trans person can have persistent gender incongruence without distress and can still benefit from gender-affirming hormones or surgeries. But not if they're not gender dysphoric. And you don't know if they are or not. The rules follow approaches advocated by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. A bunch of dangerous people seriously. They're based in the US, but of course, soy central. The organisation claims it is unethical for medical professionals to stop children receiving the treatment if they want to stop developing into the wrong sex. It's unethical to treat children. It's unethical to... These people are saying, this is not even the worst of it. They are saying it is unethical to not sterilise children. Are you kidding me? It is unethical not to treat a child who is going through all sorts of hormonal changes at that time of life, because they may, for a short time, want to be a girl. So we'll give them these drugs, we'll give them this medication, we'll cut those ghoulies off, we'll cut, Are you kidding me? And they're saying to not do that is unethical, which goes against every single code of medical ethics ever. But these people are unethical, they're immoral, and they are monsters. They want the mass sterilisation of children. It believes the age at which children should be able to receive treatment like this should be lowered to 14. And the prominent and pro-trans advocacy group also claims that eunuch is a legitimate gender identity. And she is backing them. She wants to create an entire generation of eunuchs, of sterilised children. Probably because she'll never have a child herself. She is like, I tell you who she reminds me of. She's the child catcher at a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, except she hasn't got the looks or the personality. What a monster this woman is. It comes after Scotland's highest court was told it is wrong to claim that human sex is determined at birth and cannot legally change. They say, this is the SNP are saying that human sex is determined at birth and cannot legally change, right? And they're saying that that's wrong. Well, it isn't determined at birth, it's determined at conception, and it cannot legally change because you are what you are. You can call yourself a different name, but you are what you are. And if you're born male, you are male, which incidentally is the law. Nicola Sturgeon's government has urged Lady Haldane to dismiss a case brought by feminist activist For Women Scotland, insisting it is quite clear that UK legislation allowed a male to become legally female. First of all, it's not quite clear, and secondly, that's not what the law says. And this case, I've covered partially this case, it's still ongoing, and I've done a couple of videos on it. I'll put a link to them at the end of this one. But the whole case is that For Women Scotland actually won their case, and the Scottish Government just completely ignored it. So they're going back to have a second review as to why the Scottish Government are breaking national law. Ministers have been taken to court of session by the feminist activists to challenge plans to broaden the legal definition of a woman to include men. The SNP is controversially looking to amend the Act in Scotland to make it easier for people to obtain a GRC, basically upon request. So they want people to get a gender recognition certificate more or less on request, and to be chemically castrated, then surgeries and everything, and basically turned into a woman on a whim, signed off by a GP. This is their direction of travel. This is where they're going, and they want a generation of unicized and eunuched children. What is wrong with these monsters? The sterilisation en masse of children was something I thought died out in the 30s in Nuremberg. But apparently not. It's alive and well and thriving in the SNP's minds in Scotland. But then that's hardly surprising. The SNP are a fascist organisation who during the war supported you-know-who in Germany. They were pro the N party in Germany. The Scottish National Socialist Party are monsters. Anyway, I could go on. I'm not going to go into the court case and that, but it's just an appalling abuse of power, of privilege, and of children. These people should be ashamed of themselves, but I can guarantee they're not. People of Scotland, for God's sake, look to your children. Look to what these monsters want for your children. It is beyond a joke now. They are coming out and blatantly telling the world what they are. They'll be wearing uniforms next and goose-stepping down Socky Hall Street. Anyway, I'm going to finish there and come up. Humza Yousaf and Nicola Sturgeon are the new Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Only they're going to damage far more children. And nobody in Scotland is calling them out. At least nobody in the Scottish Government. Because none of them have got the balls to stand up to that obnoxious wee dwarf. She rules with an iron fist. And yet, effectively, she's a nothing. If people there stood up for their rights, stood up for what was right, listened to their own inner voice, they'd know it was wrong. And if they all just ignored her, she'd have to go away. And she needs to go away. Why is she obsessed with damaging children? Why is she obsessed with this push for trans rights? I could not believe this story. I had, like I said, to read it several times to make sure I wasn't missing something. It can't possibly be true. And yet, here it is. People of Scotland, you need to make a choice. And the choice isn't who is the better government. Is it going to be the SNP or Labour or the Tories or anything like that? No. No. The choice you have to make is, who do you care more for? Nicola Sturgeon or your own children? Because she doesn't give one flying F for you or your kids. She would be quite happy to see them all turned into eunuchs. She is an unbelievable woman. Anyway, before I lose me rag, I could feel it rising, but I've tried my best to keep it calm. So I will finish there. Thank you very much for listening. It is a horrific story, and the direction of travel for Scotland is not a good place at the moment. So yeah, you'll have to do something. Anyway, thank you, as I say, for listening. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notification of future outputs. Please like the video. Please share the video. And do make comments. Comments on this one will be very interesting. So do please put down, as I said at the beginning of the video, do put down what you think, what you feel, and what you think should be done. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. For God's sake, do not let your children go to a GP alone. And goodbye.